Hi friends, welcome. My name is Jean. I'm a Senior Regional Program Director here at CASM, and welcome to July's Chapter Monthly Digest. I'm so excited today to be talking to you all about preparing for CASM at Home, or for those that have already finished CASM at Home, what do you do after CASM at Home? So let's go ahead and jump right in. So table of contents here, so you'll see we're going to talk about some mission moments. We're going to give you some relevant resources based on where you're at, if you are pre or post CASM at Home, and then obviously the deep dives are how to prepare for CASM at Home, and then what do you do afterwards. All right, so starting off with some mission moments. So I actually pulled these from my region, who is finishing CASM at Home this week. And here's just a couple photos that you can see from our lovely caregiver pages of campers who have decorated their rooms for CASM at Home, showing off their kits. They created vision boards. I just thought it was really cute to be able to show how these campers are continuing to feel the CASM spirit and how they're still kind of like celebrating and just really getting into the feeling of CASM even during this weird year. So I wanted to share that with you all. So feel free to take some time to look at it. For those that have already had CASM at Home, I'm sure you've also received wonderful messages like the ones that I'm showing here. Please make sure you're sharing those with everyone at your chapter so that they can enjoy those too. For those that haven't had CASM at Home yet, please post on Facebook and ask your families to share messages and photos of what their kiddos are doing at home. It's so wonderful to be able to see how excited our kiddos are and what they do to celebrate their week of CASM at Home. So some relevant resources. So these are the resources that are most relevant to those who are preparing for CASM at Home. So we have the CASM at Home guide. You've probably used it at this point. It's about 90 pages, I feel like, at this point. Lots and lots of detail to just kind of everything and anything you need to know for CASM at Home. Your chapter CASM at Home Milestones tracker, so that's that spreadsheet that has where your counselors are at in trainings, what tasks you need to complete, what campers are attending. That's kind of your big tracker that I'm sure you're probably looking at with your PD, probably weekly at least. So that's going to be really helpful for you as you prepare for CASM at Home. The CASM at Home findings, so that's the new supplemental training that your PD probably sent to you, or they just already included it in the trainings for you, but that's just kind of trainings that we received based on feedback from campers, feedback from students, and just learnings as we, have continued to put on CASM at Home. We're constantly learning about how to do things better, so that's that new training to kind of help you all be even more successful. And then the Navigating Race, Racism, and Social Justice document. So that's a new document this year that was created to just kind of help counselors navigate if campers have comments or make statements regarding their race or other social justice issues, or make racist or derogatory or participate in microaggressions, and how to support our campers. So please take some time to look through all of these resources. Are super helpful for you to be successful with CASM at Home. All right, so for those of you that are watching for preparing for CASM at Home, the key topics we're going to be focusing on today is training and background checks. Who's responsible? When are they due? How do we get counselors to finish theirs? CASM at Home kit logistics. Who can make them? How can we save some money on these? How can students avoid paying on their personal credit cards? And camper family recruitment. So we want as many kiddos to experience CASM at Home as possible. So talking a little bit about how to post in the caregiver page and on the chapter Facebook page, who's responsible for doing that, and how often we should be posting based on chapters that have been really successful in getting a lot of their campers re-registered. Great, so we're going to go ahead and start off with training and background checks, a super important part of CASM at Home. We need to make sure our counselors are prepared and that we're following all of the guidelines that are required for us working with minors, and background checks are a huge part of that. So let's talk a little bit about who is responsible for training and background checks. So there's a couple different people involved. The first person is your program director, so people like me. So program directors send out the trainings to all of the counselors and also are the ones that send out background checks. And then we also sometimes we have volunteers like our CASM ambassadors who assist in updating the CASM at Home tracker. So you may have access to some of the trainings. You definitely don't have access to view the background checks, so those can only be updated by your program director. what as students you're responsible for. So sometimes it's volunteers, sometimes it's directors, sometimes it's both. You're responsible for doing individual follow-up with people that haven't completed it yet. And then there might be some trainings that you actually are able to update depending on your program director and how the training was set up. So really, really important that you're checking on this really regularly and working with your program director of how often they're checking it. Remember that your program director does have other tasks outside of just doing background checks and trainings, so they might not be able to update it every single day, but they might have a time of the week, maybe it's Monday, maybe it's Friday, where they're working on it. So please, if you don't know, ask your program director when you can expect for them to be checking it so that you know when it's most accurate. When are these due? So this is a really important question because background checks and standards are actually attached to standards that impact your chapter's grading at the end of Custom at Home. So these must be completed by all staff at least 1 week before Custom at Home in order to receive full standards points. If there's even just one person who hasn't completed it, your then entire chapter gets marked down at least half points, which can have a big impact on your overall scoring. So really, really important to know that at least 1 week before Custom at Home starts, we want everyone to have 100% been cleared for both their background checks and every single training that people are responsible for. So why are they so important? Why do we have a standard attached to them? Why do we do this? Background checks are required by state law and by our insurance company because we work with minors. As individuals that work with people under the age of 18, we need to make sure that our background checks are clean, and it's also really important that we do all of the training so that we can ensure that our campers are safe, both emotionally and physically, and that they have the best experience possible. So our trainings are based on, like I said, camper and student feedback that we received, technical skills that are needed for Zoom, and just basic behavioral management to have a really successful and meaningful programming. Some tips and tricks to be more successful on getting these done is setting a deadline 1 to 2 weeks before the actual deadline. I strongly, strongly, strongly encourage chapters to never tell counselors the absolute last deadline because people tend to wait to the last minute. It's human nature. I'm definitely guilty of it. I'm sure everyone that's watching this recording has also at one point waited to the last minute. But it can be so stressful for your volunteer coords and your directors if we're waiting on the last minute and having to constantly follow up with someone. So telling all of your counselors or that they need to complete the training a week or two before the actual deadline, I promise is going to save you a lot of stress in the long run. Celebrate and recognize those that complete these early. So important to do positive reinforcement and celebrate those that are completing things like they're supposed to. I had a chapter that every week they would go through and every single person that had completed it, they would send them like a GIF and shout them out in the group, and it really encouraged people to want to get those done sooner so that they could be celebrated by everyone for completing their trainings. Following up through text and phone calls if they're incomplete. It is so easy to ignore an email and a Facebook message. We get so many emails, especially right now with everything going on in COVID. We get emails from everyone and anyone on what they're doing. It's so easy that when Vol sends out an email to just ignore it. So instead of doing that, have texts and calls. It's so much harder to ignore. We all have our phones on us, and you're way more likely to get responses from people if they have to ignore your phone call. So strongly encourage, stop emailing people and start calling and texting them. All right, now we're going to talk about Custom at Home kits. So just a reminder for those who don't know, Custom at Home kits are required for chapters to participate in Custom at Home. Every single camper who participates in Custom at Home should receive a kit. At a minimum, it has a note from a counselor and also has the camp t-shirt, and then also has at least one sort of arts and crafts activity in there. So who is ultimately responsible for making these? Literally anyone can do this. So typically what I've seen at my chapters is directors, ops coords, outreach coordinators, but this can be delegated to any committee members or anyone at the chapter who is being shipped supplies. This is a really easy activity of just organizing these. Personally, I am a big task-oriented person and love to physically touch things. So if you have some committee members that are like, I have nothing to do, the couple weeks leading up to Custom at Home, great. Ask them if they're willing to get stuff shipped to them and to help create these boxes. When are these due? These must get shipped out at least 1 week before Custom at Home in order to guarantee that they're getting shipped on time and to help save you on cost so that you're not doing that overnight shipping. So definitely want to get those at least 1 week out. Sometimes you might have parents that sign up within a week. That happens. It's totally okay. Doesn't mean they can't participate in Kids at Home. Doesn't mean they're not going to get the box, but does mean it could be a little bit more expensive for your chapter. So that's why it's really important to try and get the bulk of them done at least 1 week before. And one of the recommendations for my chapter is in that week before Catch Them at Home, having a couple extra boxes and giving them to a couple people and having them in their cars, so that if a family signs up last minute and someone is maybe at work or something like that, after their work shift, they can just go straight to the post office and drop it off and get it out to those families as soon as possible. Why are the kits so important? They're a physical connection to our campers to engage in the programming, feel the mission. Also just helps improve inclusivity. So not all of our families have the same supplies at home, and we want to make sure that their family environment and their home environment isn't impacting them being able to participate and engage. So important that they have the Cast Them at Home kits. It's this opportunity to connect, feel those warm and fuzzies of that letter from counselors, but also not feel like they're missing out because their family or household might not have supplies that they need to participate. Some tips and tricks: do not have packing parties. Please, 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 please. I know that you all want to see each other. I know states are in different places, but please avoid having packing parties. Although it might be easier to all connect, COVID is still a risk across the country, so please be mindful of the risk and potential harm, and also the impact that some counselors might not be able to participate because maybe they have a compromised immune system, and then maybe they don't feel comfortable sharing that information. So they're going to have to not be able to participate, and that's not creating a super equitable experience. Consolidating shipping based on units or family. So I have a lot of chapters that they separated out who was receiving the boxes, and and they would organize it by, okay, so Tomato is receiving all of the red unit boxes, and those are all the same supplies, so they can do all the red unit. And Chef is doing all of the blue unit because all the blue unit has the exact same supplies. So organizing it in a way that makes sense, that's going to decrease extra supplies all over the place, is really, really helpful to just improve efficiency of the kits. Stamps.com and pirateship.com. We cannot recommend this enough. These are great, great resources for shipping, for stamps that are affordable. This is going to save you so much money. Please take some time to look at it, especially for larger chapters. It's super accessible and really easy. Also, you can just download your rosters for all of the shipping information, and they will print them all for you. It saves you so much time and so much money. We cannot recommend these enough. These have been a lifesaver, both financially and just time-wise, getting shipping labels created for families. So please check both of these resources out. And then the last one, for those who don't know, all chapters have Amazon business accounts. So this is an account that the chapter owns that is connected to our national account with Amazon Business, where you can order supplies from Amazon, get them shipped to you, and no student has to put a credit card down or anything like that. They don't have to worry about getting reimbursed later. It is automatically charged on a national credit card. This is so wonderful for students who are nervous about long times in getting reimbursed. We know COVID has impacted a lot of students' paychecks and getting jobs and stuff like that. This is a great opportunity to ensure that no one has to pay money, no one has to wait for reimbursements, and you get all the supplies you need. So if you don't know about this, I strongly encourage that you reach out to your program director and get the information for your Amazon business account. This is a really great way to ensure that we're not taking any extra money out of anyone's pockets than we need right now. So please, if you don't know about Amazon business for your chapter, please talk to your program director about this. Hopefully all of that information is helpful for Custom at Home kits. The last thing we're going to talk about is the Caregiver Facebook group, or getting more campers signed up for Custom at Home. So who's ultimately responsible for improving camper numbers, re-registrations, and participating in the Caregiver Facebook group? Typically, it's outreach coordinators, AMP coordinators, and directors, depending on the purpose and messaging. When should we be posting on the Caregiver page? My recommendation, based on my chapters, is posting a month out, 2 weeks out, 1 week before, and then daily in the caregiver groups about details of how to connect if there's questions or concerns. Engaging with your caregivers is so crucial, and consistent communication is what they're looking for, and a great way to get a hold of families that maybe have stopped checking their emails, because like I said earlier, we're all getting a million emails right now, and hopefully get those remaining campers re-registered. Other posts as well for just the caregiver page or just specifically the Facebook page, posting about re-registering, the steps to do it, reminding people that it has to be done. They can't just rely on their old camp application in order to participate in Kesem at Home. Share what's in the Kesem at Home kits. Talk about what supplies are in there. Take a cute photo. Help them to really see it. Show a sample schedule and any other details. Maybe introduce some of your counselors, and all that sort of stuff is really helpful to post in these caregiver messages. Why is this so important? One, it helps caregivers feel informed. They know what's going on. There is so much ambiguity right now in the world that it's so helpful for our caregivers to just know what's happening, know what their kiddo is going to experience, and just have a better understanding of how we're trying to support the family at the time. So it's just going to really improve that relationship. Next thing, it's going to reduce questions, emails, and calls. You all are busy college students. I know you have so much to do, and it's so hard when you have 30 camper families all asking you the same question. A lot of the questions we get is, how do we get a hold of you? What does a day at Kesem at Home look like? What are in the kits? All these things can be answered really quickly in these broader messages out to everyone. So save y'all time later by answering all these phone calls and emails and texts by posting this information proactively in the caregiver Facebook group. Also helps improve camper attendance numbers. So we're definitely seeing a strong and really direct connection between camper chapters that are posting really consistently and communicating with families, and increased attendance and increased re-registrations. A lot of families participate on the caregiver pages or just on the regular Facebook page to see what's going on. And if you haven't posted anything in months, they might just assume, even though we've sent them emails, they might just assume maybe your chapter isn't participating, maybe your chapter isn't excited about Kesem at Home. But chapters that are posting consistently, doing 1 month countdowns, and are sharing the schedules, it shows to our families we're excited, we're interested, and it helps them to get excited too and get them re-registered. So some tips and tricks for my chapters that have been really successful. Assign a specific person who will respond to Facebook groups daily. It's so easy to say, okay, our AMP coordinators are going to handle that. But which AMP coordinator is ultimately responsible? That way, if we see a message that hasn't been responded to in a while, we can immediately say, hey, Turtle, we need you to go comment on Facebook. Assign a specific person to respond to direct messages. This can be the same person or a different person than mentioned earlier. So your chapter is probably going to get Facebook messages directly from caregivers or from campers sometimes, because some of our older campers have Facebook, who have questions. And it can be really confusing when multiple people are trying to respond to the same message at once. So ultimately, while different people can assist if needed, having one person that it's like, okay, Turtle, you are responsible for answering all Facebook messages, can just help improve communication and ensure that there's one message that's going out there to everyone that needs it. And then last, ask questions, show pictures, make it interactive. Those are the posts where we're seeing the most responses. Don't just say, here's the Kesem at Home kit. Say, what are you most excited for in the Kesem at Home kit? We've got seeds that we're planting. We're going to do a painting show. We're going to do origami. Which one of these are you most excited about? Have it interactive. Ask campers and parents to answer questions. It's going to be way more effective in getting a response and having them engage. All right, this is just kind of closing. Last kind of final tips and tricks from chapters and staff that have done Kesem at Home for those of you that are still preparing. If you had any questions or concerns, as always, go to your program director. They're there to support you. They've probably experienced at least a couple weeks of Kesem at Home at this point, so they know what works and what doesn't work. Don't hesitate to delegate tasks to different coordinators or other members if needed. This is a weird year. We're all kind of doing things differently than we ever have before. It's okay if the roles need to change, even if it's something that maybe typically Ops manages kits, but maybe Ops doesn't have the bandwidth right now, but MTM is still available and excited to do things. That's okay. That's totally fine. Delegate as you need to. We don't have to completely stick to our traditional coordinator roles for this year. Expect that you're going to learn a lot regarding technology on your first day, and that's okay. Have some backup questions to ask to campers that are figuring it out. Every single chapter that I've had has said, the first day is a day of learning, and that's fine. Your campers know this is entirely new. You know it's entirely new. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't expect for your first day to be perfect. Have some time to practice. Just have a couple questions. Show your dog. Do some fun, would you rather questions to kind of fill the time as you're working on getting a breakout room or anything else set up. This is an entirely new program, so don't be hard on yourself. Kesem people are amazing, and I'm so proud of all the student leaders that have jumped on board, taken up the challenge of putting on this entire new program. And it's okay if it's not 100% perfect. This is new. We're all learning and growing. So don't be too hard on yourself and celebrate all the victories that are going to come, because there is going to be something amazing that happens at every single Kesem at Home session. So please take the time to celebrate those things. And last thing, every single chapter that's put Kesem at Home has said this in their debrief, and I as a program director cannot say this more: be flexible. As long as you're following policies and campers are having fun, the activity success is already done, and it doesn't necessarily have to go according to plan. So many of my chapters have put so much time and effort into organizing their programming, which is wonderful, and I'm so, so grateful. But sometimes campers want to do something different. Maybe you have this really great unit banner activity planned, but the campers really just want to draw their families. That's okay. That's totally fine. And if they're having a good time, that is a victory. That is success. You put on a wonderful programming. You did your job. So please don't be too hard on yourselves if the programming doesn't go as planned or campers want to do things differently. As long as you're following all of our policies and they're having a good time, that's success and that's a victory, and you can still celebrate that time. All right, well, those are all the things I have for preparing for Kesem at Home. I hope this was helpful and informative. On Monday, I'm going to be sharing out in the CK Directors Facebook group, we're going to have a discussion thread for all of those that have already done Kesem at Home with some tips and tricks and other things to kind of help you all to be successful. So if you're not already in the CK Directors Facebook group, I strongly encourage you to go add yourself and stay tuned for on Monday when our discussion thread will be posted. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. We'll be moving forward with post-Kesem at Home tasks in a moment. Bye, friends! Good luck with Kesem at Home. It's going to be amazing. I know it. All right, friends, if you're just now tuning in, you have already completed Kesem at Home. Woohoo! You did it! Amazing! Now we're going to talk about what do you do after Kesem at Home. What's next? So, starting on this slide, we're going to be talking about some relevant resources to help you to be successful. Some new and updated resources that we've created for you is the Director Transition Doc, Coordinator Recruitment, Coordinator Interview and Application Rubric, which also includes a video and quiz that you must take before opening your applications, Coordinator Transition Documents, our Kesem Partnership and Co-Branding and Representation Guide, and our Kesem Community Resources. In a relevant form is our virtual Make the Magic and Bring the Magic Home debrief agenda. Most of these, as you can tell, are documents that just kind of help you transition and prepare for opening your coordinator applications. The Kesem Partnership and Co-Branding and Representation Guide is brand new to kind of help Kesem navigate how we have partnerships with different people on your university or out in your community, how to manage branding, and how to accurately represent different groups in the Kesem community for 2021. And also the Kesem Community Resources is this wonderful document that's available to both our families and our student leaders of how to navigate the current social justice climate here in America, how to talk about race, resources to help support those that are feeling like the emotional and mental strain, and other resources to just kind of help you to be successful. So what are we going to be talking about for post-Kesem at Home? The four main areas we're going to be focusing on is post-Kesem at Home tasks, what to do after the last programming, who's responsible, when are they due by, how to go about transitioning directors, so what are the resources, what sort of debrief calls are you going to have with your PD, what are the director expectations, the coordinator selection process, so what resources are available, what needs to get approved by a PD, what do you do once you have new coordinators, and university standing. Is your chapter re-registered as an official org, and have you signed up for the upcoming organizational fairs? Great. So Kesem at Home has happened. Great. Now you have some post-Kesem at Home tasks. Similar to just like if you've gone to camp before, there are always post-camp tasks. So who's ultimately responsible for completing these tasks? Ideally, outgoing directors are ultimately responsible for ensuring these tasks are complete. Most of the tasks that you'll see for post-Kesem at Home are AMP tasks. There are a lot of like posts and thank yous. So these can be delegated out to other student leaders, but ideally we want our outgoing directors to be responsible for them and ensuring that they get completed. When should these be done by? So you can review your Milestones tracker for more information, but ideally all tasks need to be completed at least 1 week before Kesem at Home. So we strongly encourage that you work on these as soon as possible. Some of these are just posts and don't take super long, and there's templates in the Kesem at Home guide to help you, but all of these need to be completed 1 week before after Kesem at Home. Why are they important? Why do we need to do these Kesem at Home tasks? Most of the tasks are related to ensuring that photos and videos from Custom at Home is available for your chapter so that we can use it for marketing, as well as stewardship of the constituents that supported you throughout the year. There's a lot of constituents that support a chapter, like donors, your alumni, your advisory board, health and wellness team. And although all these individuals might have not actually assisted with Custom at Home, we want them to know that their support and donations went towards something, made a difference in their community, and that we recognize that we couldn't do it without them. So important that we do these post-Custom at Home tasks so those people recognize the gratitude that we have for them and are encouraged to continue to support your chapter year over year. Some tips and tricks. I strongly recommend that you assign a specific person to complete these tasks. Just like any other task with CSM, sometimes we'll give you a recommendation of a person, like AMP coordinators, but it's much more helpful when you organize a specific person who's going to be responsible for them. So saying, okay, Turtle on AMP is going to manage doing the thank yous to our advisory board, and Hot Sauce on AMP is going to be responsible for reaching out to our alumni. Strongly encourage that you check the Custom at Home guide for templates and emails to reduce your time. We always love to give you templates. You're welcome to do something differently if you'd like, but we also recognize that a lot of students are busy right now, and it might be more helpful to just take a template and adapt from there. And as always, ask your PD if you have any questions or are confused about any of your tasks or need additional support. Director transitions. So who's ultimately responsible for director transitions? Outgoing directors should work with incoming directors to review onboarding tasks with the assistance of the program director. When should these be completed? Honestly, these vary a lot from chapter to chapter. Typically what we say is that director transitions happen after the chapter has finished summer programming. This might be different for your chapter, and feel free to talk to your program director about it, but usually outgoing directors are responsible for completing the summer programming and then usually doing debriefs afterwards, and then the transition happens for incoming directors to take over for the fall. Why are these so important? Director transitions are crucial to ensure that incoming directors are set up for success, that there's no loose ends, so that outgoing directors don't have to be looped in afterwards once things are completed, and just improve the incoming director experience. We are so grateful for all of our directors, and there's so much information and knowledge that directors gain during their time, and it's so helpful for incoming directors if there's a really detailed transition process so that all the information is relayed and the outgoing directors kind of manage and finish all of the tasks so that incoming directors can take over. Some tips and tricks. Setting up a call to review the onboarding and transition materials with outgoing directors is so crucial. For my region, I strongly encourage that incoming and outgoing directors spend at least 1 hour reviewing all of the transition and onboarding materials together so that they can make sure that everyone understands understands all of the information, and they can review all the material together and just have a conversation about how the year went, who are the big people that are involved with their chapter, what are major issues that came up, or anything else that's going to help the incoming directors be successful. Reach out to your program director with questions and concerns. Your program director also does their own separate transition. If you recently got a new PD, they do transitions, but also program directors are heavily involved in all of the information that's shared during transition. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to your program director if you have questions about an advisory board member or anything else. They're happy to work with you and support you. Add incoming directors as admin on Facebook pages and other groups. So this is a common one that often gets missed, so I wanted to kind of flag this. Remember that all directors should be on all Facebook groups, including caregiver, alumni, if there's any counselor ones, and then just the general chapter Facebook page to be able to offer support and guidance in case questions or concerns come up. Reminder that outgoing directors should leave as admin from those groups, and incoming directors should be added. Remove outgoing directors' names, phone numbers, and any emails as secondary verification. So this is a common one that also gets forgotten about. Remember that Gmail has secondary verification set up for all of your chapter email addresses. So you'll have to go into the Gmail settings and make sure that you remove the outgoing, usually it's the outgoing director's phone number, so that incoming directors are able to change the passwords and able to kind of move forward with security for the chapter for the rest of the year. And then lastly, introduce new directors to university contacts. Outgoing directors have so many relationships, whether it's with your faculty advisor, whether it's with other university contacts, your advisory board, your mental health professionals that you've worked with, key alumni, CASM ambassadors, or anyone else. Please make sure that outgoing directors introduce incoming directors to all of these different constituents. It's going to help the incoming directors to be more successful, and really just make sure that everyone knows that there's a transition that's happened so that we can support the remainder of the year. Coordinator selection and transition. Who's responsible for these? Incoming directors are responsible for recruiting, interviewing, and bringing selections for incoming directors to the program director. So this is kind of usually one of the first tasks that incoming directors take on, which can be very exciting, looking at building up your new team. The program director has final approval of coordinator selections. You cannot send out the results or final standings of coordinators without the approval of your program director first. When should these be completed? Again, this completely varies from chapter to chapter and really depends on your chapter culture, when Custom at Home was happening, and what do you think is ultimately going to be best for your team, and should be something that's decided in collaboration with your program director. I have several chapters that started this process and completed it before Custom at Home. I have some chapters that started the process and are finishing it after Custom at Home. I have some chapters that haven't started at all until after Custom at Home. There's no wrong way to do it. It's just important that you work with your program director and see what makes the most sense for your chapter. Why are these important? Just like we talked about with director transitions, coordinator selection and transitions is key to a successful academic year. The sooner we can get people in place and get them supported is going to just overall help their transition and their experience in their role. It's really easy to want to wait until fall or much later to select coordinators. Maybe that does make sense for your university. And think about how, as a director, you get time to shadow and observe people in their roles and how helpful that is. Consider that when thinking about your coordinators and contemplate if maybe having the outgoing coordinators be able to support and mentor incoming coordinators would make sense for your chapter, and contemplate potentially changing your timeline from what it's looked like in the past. Some tips and tricks in general for coordinator selection and transitioning is giving general body members, counselors, opportunities to shadow and observe coordinator tasks and meetings. Many chapters will let our TLP or our team leadership program members to be able to observe staff meeting, right? And it helps them to kind of see what the experience is like. Very similar to letting general body members and counselors have opportunities to shadow and observe coordinator task meetings. It's really hard to imagine what you do as a coordinator if you've never been one. So being able to observe and see what the tasks look like, be able to see the team and just be able to see how we work together is really helpful for people to decide if that's something they're interested in doing for future years. Holding an info session or a Q&A to answer questions or concerns for potential applicants is another great way to recruit coordinators and have that available during when your coordinator application is open. A lot of people have questions about coordinator selection that they're maybe too nervous or embarrassed about sharing with the directors directly. Some common questions I usually hear from people that are interested in being in the coordinator role is, can I do this while I have a part-time job? Do I have to have gone to camp before? What if I've never held a leadership position? What if I'm new to CASM? All of these questions are completely valid, and all of these things might not be reasons for someone to not apply to be a coordinator. So hosting info sessions or Q&As where people are able to ask these questions in a normalized setting and have directors be able to talk about their experiences and other coordinators and be able to share what they're looking for in a team can be really, really helpful to get people excited and more comfortable with the idea of being a coordinator. Posting on social media and in student groups is another great way to gain interest. So posting on your social media that you're looking for people, sharing who is currently on your coordinator board, what their position looks like, what they were most excited about, what did they learn this year. All of those things are really helpful to just engage in those conversations and get people thinking about the application and applying. Lastly, focus on the skills needed for the position versus a person's CASM experience. I cannot say this enough. I've had absolutely amazing directors and coordinators that had never been involved with CASM before who are absolutely wonderful, wonderful members that have made such a difference in their CASM communities. Do all the coordinator positions need to have camp experience? No. Why would MTM need to have camp experience? Why does a treasurer need to have camp experience? They don't. There might be some positions where it makes sense and it's helpful, but there are tons of positions where it's not necessary for them to have had camp experience. Instead, focus on the skills. What does an MTM coordinator need? They need to be able to talk to adults. They need to be able to plan months in advance. They need to be detail-orientated. They need to be guest or people-focused on their experience. Those are the things that are so much more important than, can they lead a camp song? Are they campy? Are they outgoing? Can they play gaga ball for hours with our campers, right? So think about the skills needed for the position versus just a person's CASM experience. If you do that, it's going to help open up the amount of people that are available and get a more diverse group of individuals and people that are more qualified for the role other than that they love CASM. Last one, university standing. Who's responsible for ensuring that you're re-registered at the university and in positive standing? Directors. Directors are responsible for ensuring the chapter is re-registered as an official club for the upcoming year in good standing and following all the policies set by the university. This is a really important part of the role that it can have really large implications for not only your chapter, but the entire national organization. So it is so crucial that this is done. When should these be completed by? Universities have different deadlines, but most need to be re-registered before the school year starts for the fall. I strongly encourage everyone to take time to do some research now and find out if their chapter is re-registered. Why are these important? There's so many reasons why this is important. Being recognized as an organization with your university allows for university property to be used for meetings and fundraising, can include additional funding or reimbursement for the chapter, can impact student recruitment, and impact the larger partnership that CASM has with your school. Now, there are a couple chapters that do not have a connection with their university, and if that's your case, please work with your program director on any expectations that you have. But any chapter that currently has good standing and is a registered club on their university needs to maintain that standing. Also, the other important part is that as we navigate these unprecedented times, most university protocols, especially for clubs, has changed for the upcoming year. We want to ensure that we're following all safety requirements and protecting our students. Most of this information is done through email, sometimes also through the website, but being a re-registered club guarantees that you're going to be given access to that information and ensuring that you're following all the policies needed to ensure that we're being as safe as possible for our student leaders. Some tips and tricks to make sure that you are following and in good standing with your university is working with your outgoing directors and your program director to see what needs to be finished or what has already been completed. Sometimes these are done in the spring and the outgoing directors have already completed these tasks. Sometimes these aren't done until later and maybe the incoming directors need to manage it. So working with outgoing directors, incoming directors, and PDs are crucial to ensure that you have completed this and that you're ready to go for the next academic year. Most universities have a student life or student resources department where you can email or call for additional information. Utilize your university for support. There are people there that are literally here to help you, and their job is to support clubs on campus. So make sure you reach out to your university with any questions or concerns. Make sure that you're in good standing and see if they have any information on club fairs or other ways that your university can participate. Final tips for after CASM at home. Keep your program director looped in regarding any COVID-related university changes for 2020/2021. There's a lot happening in our world today, and universities are making changes almost every single day. Please make sure that you loop in your program director and send and forward any emails to them regarding any changes regarding being on campus versus in line, club requirements, anything like that is going to help us to be able to better support you and make sure that we have resources available to support you during the next academic year. There will be more information to come for what fiscal year 21 is going to look like during fall training, which will be sometime in September through October. Please be patient as CASM is constantly trying to adapt our resources to support you all during this unprecedented time. So please bear with us. Information might come in chunks, and it might come, sorry, there's an airplane. It might come in chunks, and then there might be times where you don't hear from us. Please know that we're working incredibly hard to provide as many resources as possible, and we'll try and give everything to you during fall training. Lastly, celebrate that you helped amazing camper families this summer. CASM at Home is an entirely new program, and it's absolutely incredible the dedication and support that our student leaders took up and made sure that our families felt safe, loved, and respected during COVID-19 and everything else that's happening in the world. Please take times to celebrate your victories, share all the warm and fuzzies, and just have some time to really celebrate the amazing work that you did during this wild time in our country. Hopefully this was helpful for you all to just kind of understand what the next steps are for once you've completed CASM at Home. As always, if you ever have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to your program director. We're here to support you, and we want you to be successful. I hope you have a great rest of the day. For those that are interested in talking a little bit more about post-CASM at Home tasks, we will also have a discussion thread in the CK Chapter Directors Facebook page on Monday. So if you have not joined the CK Directors Facebook group, please do so over the weekend so that you can participate in our discussion thread on Monday. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. We'll be continuing with Chapter Monthly Digests later on in the fall. Thank you so much. Bye, friends!